Now, President Trump is ripping his former fixer, Michael Cohen, this morning, tweeting, if anybody's looking for a good lawyer, I would strongly suggest that you don't retain the services of Michael Cohen. That's, of course, because Cohen has linked the president to a federal crime. Two counts, by the way, against Cohen deal with hush payments to women that the president allegedly had affairs with. They are campaign finance violations because campaign money may have been used, and it was done in secret to have an influence on the election. In one case, the contribution was more than would have been allowed. Anyway, Cohen said in court that the payments were made, quote, in coordination with and at the direction of a candidate for federal office for the principal purpose of influencing the election. This is the part that is relevant, for the principal purpose of influencing the election, because it's quite likely that had that money not been paid, the election would have been influenced. The payments, he details, are $150,000 to Karen McDougal, paid by the National Enquirer owner AMI, and $130,000 to Stormy Daniels through a company set up by Cohen. Both of these are separate and different campaign finance violations. The Stormy payment exceeded the $2,700 limit on individual campaign payments, and the McDougal payment was an unlawful payment by a corporation on behalf of a candidate. The president's former assistant, Omarosa Manigault-Newman, says these payments were no secret.
We all knew that this was going to be used as a hush money kind of payment from campaign finances.
You knew at the time?
Oh, we knew. And Michael
Cohen... So the 150 to McDougal and the 130 to Stormy Daniels, all that money, it's $250,000, a lot of money.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, there are a lot of donors, a lot of people who gave to this campaign expecting it would go towards the victory. But instead, it was going to shut these women up. And that is illegal.
Joining me now is Jessica Levinson, attorney and professor law school, and Nick Ackerman, former assistant special Watergate prosecutor and a law firm at Dorsey and Whitney, a lawyer at the law firm Dorsey and Whitney. You might be a law firm unto yourself. You're so good. Thanks to both of you. Jessica, Donald Trump tweeted this morning, it's not even a crime, the campaign finance violations. Do you know what that means?
I don't, because it could be a crime. So campaign finance violations can lead to civil fines, and they can also lead to criminal liability. And what Michael Cohen said in open court yesterday when he pled to violating federal election law, these campaign finance violations, is that I did this at the direction of candidate A. We all know that that candidate is President Trump. And if that was done willfully and knowingly, then we have criminal liability. Now, of course, as we've all been talking about, there's a question of what happens to a sitting president with respect to criminal liability. Right. But no, I am not seeing his claim that there's no criminal liability here for him.
And in fact, to average people who aren't lawyers or aren't experts on campaign finance, sort of the more interesting part of this is that the president, according to Michael Cohen, directed it, and it was done with the aim of influencing the election. So this becomes relevant, that whatever the actual technical crime is not what many Americans are thinking about today. It's that the president denied having done this. He denied it while in office, and in fact, it was apparently done.
Well, and that for the purpose of influencing the election, as you said in the introduction, that's the key here, because the question for these payments was always, is this to keep the marriage together? Is it to keep Donald Trump and Melania's marriage together? Or is it to keep the campaign together?
Right.
And Michael Cohen answered that question yesterday, but we already basically knew the answer to that question because
right.
of when the payment was made, because of the fact that Michael Cohen was apparently approached further before the election, and he kind of rebuffed those statements. If you have these payments right before the election, and you have the indicia that it was for the purpose of influencing the election, and then you have the president's lawyer saying, yes, that's exactly right.
Now, Nick, you take a different view of this a little bit in that while everybody believes this is a very serious matter and that Michael Cohen threw the president under the bus in making a deal for himself, you still think that you have to take Michael Cohen in concert with Paul Manafort and the fact that they both would have known about Russian involvement in the campaign, including the Trump Tower meeting, because Manafort was in that meeting. And this is really about the pressure campaign on Manafort to tell him what he knows, and the pressure campaign on Manafort by Trump to not disclose anything.
That's exactly right. I mean, the whole point of what Manafort knows, I mean, he was so involved in Russia. He was convicted for receiving, you know, over about he got $70 million from the Ukrainians, which all came from the Russians to keep their puppet in place. He was very connected to Russian intelligence, to Russian agents. and was at that June 9th meeting in Trump Tower. Michael Cohen also, according to Christopher Steele and the reports that he accumulated, came up with information that Michael Cohen was in Prague after Manafort left the campaign in order to take care of the hackers that had hacked into the Democratic National Committee and to continue what Paul Manafort was doing with the Russians. In fact, if you read the Steele report and you substituted Stormy Daniels for the Russians and the hackers, it's like he was doing the same thing. He was trying to keep all of this away from Donald Trump.
Cover up stories, keep them away, not have them come up. Independent of the statement that Michael Cohen made, Jessica, that this was done with the intent of influencing the election, would the hush money payments still be problematic?
Well, the hush money payments could be problematic for the person who made the payment, which is Michael Cohen, and for there's an issue here with respect to the parent company of the National Enquirer.
American Media, yeah.
But it might not be. The question was always, what did the president know, and when did he know it? And so, because Michael Cohen has said, no, I didn't do this on my own. This was not a rogue mission. This was President Trump telling me, yes, let's try and pay these people off to influence the election. That's the moment where we have liability for the president.
That is the moment in which the legitimacy of this presidency comes into question. Because, Nick, you were with me last night where a whole lot of people said, I don't understand why this is a bridge too far, given all the bridges that have already been crossed by this president. But the difference is, in many of the things the president has been accused of doing until now, they didn't involve his actual presidency. Some crime that may have resulted in the president gaining this presidency, that speaks to the legitimacy of this presidency. The legitimacy of this presidency came under great pressure last night.
Of course. I mean, this is what it's all about. I mean, you've got him now involved as a co-conspirator with Michael Cohen. This is not some simple campaign violation. I mean, what makes this different than a normal civil violation is the fact that they used phony documents. They falsified the documentation, making it appear as though Michael Cohen was doing legitimate legal work when, in fact, he wasn't. They set it up so he was getting $35,000 a month. He set up a company that was a phony company in order to make the payments. They had other people that were involved in this. There's even a tape with Donald Trump where they talk about the Karen McDougal, where there's a reference to paying off cash. I mean, all of this has what are known in the legal jargon as the badges of fraud that make the difference between what is civil and what is criminal.
Thank you to both of you. Nick Ackerman is MSNBC's legal analyst, former assistant special Watergate prosecutor. Jessica Levinson is a Loyola Law School professor